Hello and welcome to this webinar on achieving operational resilience and agility during uncertain times. I'm Peter Walker, the editor at National Technology News, and as the current affairs agenda becomes dominated by how companies are responding to the current crisis, one of the emerging areas of interest is how AI and automation solutions can maintain business continuity. So I'm going to be joined by Catherine Gurwitz, Product Marketing Manager for NICE's Advanced Process Automation line of business, Chris Gaynor, the Director of Symphony Labs, and Steve Gush, the Vice President for Digital Solutions at Sykes. I'm going to hand over to them now to talk you through how distributed working can impact service operations and consistent delivery, as well as how to enable remote employees to adapt to their new environment, and some practical ways in which intelligent attended automation can help staff stay informed, productive, and empathetic to customer issues. So I will hand over to them now.
Hi, Peter. It's Chris Gaynor here from Symphony Ventures and Sykes Digital Services. My background or my role within Symphony and Sykes Digital Services is that I work closely with operations, sales, software development, clients, and partners to identify and envision and then deliver transformative solutions in pursuit of realizing the future of work. And I'll talk a bit more about the future of work in this discussion. I'm originally from Australia, so please let me know if I'm speaking too fast or I'm just words are coming out all jumbled. But great to be here, and thanks for NICE, and thanks Peter and team for having us here today. Really looking forward to the discussion. Over to Steve.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Chris. I'm Steve Gush. My background really is 18 years of managing technology teams for Sykes Engagement Services. Sykes Engagement Services is a BPO that has over 52,000 global contact center seats, supporting over 200 of the world's leading brands in numerous verticals, from banks to utilities to tech companies to telcos. Lastly, over the last 2 years, I've really focused, now part of the Sykes Digital Services team, on how digital technologies can be used to improve both the effectiveness and the efficiencies of customer service operations. It's a delight to be talking with you guys here on what is a torrid time for the contact center business and for businesses around the world with current events. I'll hand over to Catherine.
Hi, everybody. I'm Catherine Gurwitz, and I'm a Product Marketing Manager for the Automation line of business at NICE. I hope that everybody is keeping well and safe during these very interesting times. It's a great pleasure to be here today, and I look forward to an interesting and stimulating discussion. So Chris, if we could move on to the next slide. Great. I'd like to introduce you to NICE. We're a global software company, and we cover many different areas within the customer experience domain. But for today's discussion, we'll be focusing specifically on attended automation. And this is an area that we've been focused on for over 17 years, bringing intelligent automation to the employees' desktops. And we call this automation for the people. I'm really looking forward to elaborating some more about our expertise in this area today. Over to you, Steve and Chris.
Thanks, Catherine. Quick overview of Symphony Ventures. So Symphony has been in the intelligent automation space for over 6 years now, investing in building tools, expertise, and methodologies within the space, helping Fortune and FTSE clients, so large, complex environments, drive value and achieve success in their automation programs. We've got a history of winning lots of awards around our approach around client intimacy, and significantly, we've received accolades around delivering value at scale for many large, complex clients, as I mentioned. A big interesting part of this discussion, where Symphony starts to bridge into the discussion about future of work, front office and back office, is that we were acquired recently by Sykes, which is a 55,000 person strong organization. So we now have the ability to look at front office automation, intelligent automation into desktop automation, attended automation, as well as right back down into the back office. So we're able now, as I say, uniquely positioned to help clients look at both front, back office, and start to reimagine actually what does that experience look like for customers, for agents, for employees, and then we can really start to change some of that discussion around what success looks like. Peter, back to you.
Okay, in terms of working from home then, I'd like to get an idea of how you and your customers have responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's start off with Steve.
Steve, if you're talking, you might be on mute.
Shall I start again?
That's fine.
That is a great question, Peter. I think initially it was really a simple concept. Let's just work from home. If we, all around the world, offices were closing, transport systems were closing down. As the pandemic was taking place, social distances was being put in place. And the old normal of just going into the office and working each day was no longer viable. And very quickly we had to respond and try and enable our agents to work from home. From a Sykes perspective, we were lucky enough to have a head start. We already had, out of our 50,000+ agents working around the globe, we already had over 7,000 of them that were working from home previous to any kind of COVID impact. Really, our clients looked at home before the impact based on their flexibility, based on being able to ramp quickly, based on being able to have seasonality, based on being able to manage split shifts. There was lots of great reasons for agents to work from home. There were, however, lots of challenges as well when we looked at security. So a lot of our clients just didn't want to work from home, wanted to have that safety of having the control of a bricks and mortar environment, really driven from that security aspect. It felt secure if you could see it physically. There was also training. It was always easier and more effective to train somebody when you can stand in front of them, put them into a classroom. There's also visibility. If you're working in a bricks and mortar center, you can just look around and you can see who's working, who's not working. Are they in the right place? Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? Do they need help? All of that is very visible. Not all of those things are still equally as attributable when you work from home, but you've got to digitize a lot of that. So a lot of your security overview needs to be digitized, your training needs to be digitized, and your visibility needs to be digitized. So we did have a head start in that respect, and we were lucky with that. But over a 3-week period, where previously it probably took us 5 or 6 years to move up to those 7,000 work-at-home agents, we then spent 3 weeks to go from 7,000 to 30,000. But what we've seen is this is a real eye-opener for our clients that were previously very nervous about that step. Now that COVID has, in essence, taken that choice away, so it's no longer a decision, it's really the only way that they could operate, and they've been operating that way for 2 months. They're starting to see that some of their challenges are actually we can overcome, and we've overcome them a lot with our One Team platform that we use to help us with transparency, with training, with quality, and with security, really digitizing a lot of those areas that were more physical in a center, better collaboration tools, better use of data to identify what data people are looking at and are they looking at things they should be looking at or not, biometrics to help with is this the right person that's working on this and they're logging in from the right area. So that's really how we've reacted to it. And I say it's been a huge challenge, but I think this is really opening the door to a new way of work as we have different locations to work from and combine sort of the physical, having an agent being able to work from where he wants, and having the digital components and the technologies to enable that.
Yeah, it's been this incredible kind of enforced proof of concept, hasn't it? Catherine, what about you and NICE then?
Well, Peter, since the start of the pandemic, we've seen many organizations functioning in crisis management mode with an immediate and key focus on their core business functions and less of a long-term focus. But I really, just to echo what Steve's been saying, we also have been seeing that since COVID-19, it's really pushed organizations to accelerate their digital transformations to ensure business continuity, because everything has just become rapidly digitized. And, from our perspective, a part of this digitalization includes integrating our attendant bot, which we call NEVA, the NICE Employee Virtual Attendant, integrating her into this new workforce to really support employees while they're working from home. So we created a special package pretty quickly, which we call Neva at Home. And this is designed to help organizations to not only maintain their core business operations, but to support their remote employees at the same time. And it's really just a matter of installing Neva on each employee's desktop at this time.
Okay, and Steve, also, you mentioned some of them, but what are the kind of major challenges and opportunities associated with remote working and the move to home working?
So if you talk of the opportunities, even wider than moving away from business continuity planning, what are we going to do if X happens, to just generating this environment where people are dispersed all over the place, people are using different skills, they're using different technologies. All of a sudden, if you have a problem in a certain location, you've got to have that BCP in place anymore, because your organization by default is more agile, using work from home, using a mixed work environment, and using digital technologies. There's also opportunities from having this flexible working by, especially in the customer environment, there are these peaks. There are these peaks mid-morning and early evening. Nobody wants to drive an hour or half an hour to an office, do their first shift, drive back for 2 hours, then come back and do the next shift. But if you think about those downtimes their downtimes are quite often where childcare comes into play as well. So people really want to work that pattern, but that commute just isn't practical. So if you can then just employ people to do a 6-hour working day, but broken up with a 3-hour gap in the middle, it's helping those people being able to get better work-life balance for what they need to do in their life, as well as being able to generate much better occupancy where you haven't got people sat around waiting for calls to come in times that are down because you haven't been there. That drives occupancy and helps it. So there's lots of advantages that work at home is driven. But the challenges are where really we look at technology like Neva to be able to help us with them. We talked about two of those main challenges earlier on, which is security and access to data and training. So let's break those down and where Neva can help us with that. If it's security we're concerned about, then the big concern is the fact that for an agent to do their job, they're often logging into lots of different systems, and those systems have lots of information that's really confidential. Now, do they need to log into all those systems and be able to gain access to everything? Or can they just have a Neva that sits there and goes and gets that information for them? So they're only dealing with the information they need for the call or the contact they're on. Now, if you look at it from a training perspective, there's often very complex training needs around training people to use those complex systems and those multiple different systems. We're having a front office automation like Neva in place to be able to stand in for there. Then all of a sudden you're training a much simpler process of how you manage Neva and how you give Neva the work to do for her to go and do that work, as opposed to how to manage these multiple systems. So we're seeing there are challenges. Security, training are the key ones, and recruitment, but there are ways of digitally overcoming those challenges, and it's all around focusing on the right areas. That you can work the same way as you can in a center, but you have to work a lot more digitally.
Great, thank you, Steve. And I'd really like to just elaborate on some of these challenges that we're seeing out there. And certainly from a customer service perspective, we see a lot of pressure and distress in this space. And both, service representatives and enterprises have their own unique sets of challenges. So this is a time when employees are really needing more support and guidance, especially in the physical absence of their supervisors and management. And with all these changes and chaos, there's still immense pressure to deliver a consistent customer service. So what we're seeing is, with the absence of physical branches, the call center is becoming the first port of call for many, many end customers. And this is significantly increasing call volumes. In fact, we've even heard of instances where end customers have been put on hold for over 4 hours. So this is just a clear indication of what a big challenge this is for remote service operations at the moment. In terms of longer call handle times, there are a number of factors impacting this as well. But what we're seeing specifically is that many customers are calling in, are quite stressed out and emotionally charged, and they're really needing more time and support from the agents. We also see that customers are becoming a lot more demanding at this time, and this often results in them asking the customer service representatives for new and unusual requests that are more complex and outside of the service agent's comfort zone and outside of their direct control. Steve,
I think just to add to that as well.
You something to say about
sorry.
customer self-service.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just to really echo what you were just talking about there around longer handle time and more demanding customers. If you look at what a lot of organizations are doing with heavily investing on digital, especially upfront in that customer journey by improving self-service, means that customers try desperately to fix their problems themselves, going to Google, going to self-help, going to forums, trying to get the problem fixed. That means that when all that fails and they do talk to an agent, the problem is usually more complicated. So that drives longer handle times to try and resolve that problem. And B, those customers are much more frustrated, A, because they've got a challenging problem to resolve, and B, because they've already spent 20, 30 minutes, an hour trying to solve that problem to go and talk to an agent who's going to ask him the same questions he's been going through all over again. So that's really driving this longer handle time and this demand for customers, a much more demanding customers.
Guys, apologies. If we could pause for a second. I just wanted to mention that I couldn't hear a word that Steve was saying.
Steve was coming through loud and clear on my end.
Okay. Should we just continue, and hopefully I can hear him going on?
Steve,
yes,
can you talk for us, Steve?
I heard him perfectly as well. This is Madlena.
Hey there, Steve.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, Catherine? If I talk, is that helps me any better?
Okay.
I take it you can't hear me at all. Can you hear the other guys? It's really weird.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Strange.
It could be the fact that your internet cut out or something.
It was just when you were speaking.
I think there might be something on your side, Catherine. I noticed when I was flicking through the slides, there was a good 10 seconds before you saw the slide, but I think it was already on. It was on the screen, or definitely on my side for a good 10 seconds. So I'm not sure if there's something consuming bandwidth on your side, Catherine, that might be lagging a bit.
Yeah, I think that might be the case as well.
Well, I think you cut it off there at quite a nice point, though, Catherine, because I just started, or just. Catherine, I think I've finished just talking on that demanding customer needs bit. So I think the bit that you cut it off was quite a nice segue just to go into that next slide anyway, and we can pick it up from Peter asking that question for the next slide.
Okay, but before that, we want to just talk about the contact center was in the past and the new agent, right? So there are a couple more slides.
Yep, I think that's Steve's point. He's kind of, I think there was a good conversation there.
I think we're
throwing
done
it
on
back
this
to you
slide.
now.
We can go to the next slide. Yeah, we can go to the next slide and go back to you.
I see. Okay. So sorry, am I understanding right that we're now moving on to the contact center slide?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, wonderful. Has there been an improvement, by the way, with my sound quality?
It's just the sound quality is fine, Catherine. It just seems to be a big lag from when we speak or make a change to when you hear it.
Yes. Gosh, that's so strange. I don't know why. Okay.
Do we want to crack on with the next section and because I think you're largely talking for the next 3 slides anyway, Catherine. Should we just crack on with the next bit and then see how we go?
Let's go ahead. Absolutely, no problem.
Count us down, Catherine, whenever you're ready.
And 3, 2, 1. Chris, if you could, right, great. So here we see an image of a typical call center that was active only just a few months ago, and this was the place of real personal interactions and connections where agents were in very close proximity to their supervisors when they needed support. And if we look at today's agent, it's a completely new picture. You know, this image really represents the new reality of customer service employees today, and they're very isolated. And as a result of that, there are a whole new host of challenges that are coming up. So they're really needing more support and guidance on many different levels. And the challenge is to help remote agents to find a new way of connecting to their managers and to the customer. So I'd just like to highlight a few other challenges that we see out there, and these really contribute to greater service complexity within organizations. So as service agents are transitioning into a new work from home reality, it's now become more important than ever before to establish agile service operations, especially in view of the many external changes that are happening all the time, and it's all very unpredictable. So from an enterprise perspective, we see a lot of updates from different governments around the world that require the company to respond to these updates in changing their policies on a regular basis, even on a daily basis. So this needs to be communicated to employees very quickly. And in some instances, employees are given new SLAs, which is pretty challenging to maintain in a distributed work environment. What we also see is a continual buildup of back office backlogs, and in some cases, organizations are looking to reduce headcount in an attempt to be more cost efficient.
It's a nice long pause. Have we lost Catherine, or is that the end of your section, Catherine?
That's the end of my section. There was probably a lag again.
No worries. Steve, did you want to jump in on any of that stuff, or do we want to jump to the next question? And I guess, Peter, is this still syncing up with your question set?
I'm ready for the future of work slide when you are.
Steve, is there anything you want to say?
Yeah,
I think
we just move on to that, Chris. No, I'm good. I'm good. Let's move on, I think.
Okay. So back to you, Peter.
In terms of the future of work, we hear a lot about intelligent automation and the future of work. Are they essentially the same thing? And what, I suppose, why should we care about either, Chris?
Yeah, sure. And thank you, Catherine. I think you've painted a really nice picture as to the challenges that we're facing in the contact center. But equally, I think the combination of what Steve and yourself were talking about is we're starting to get a sense of the challenge that organizations face, particularly in response to COVID, but actually it really is to do with the future of work. So if I was to think about the future of work, to me, it's an ever-evolving journey. It's a narrative that brings together technology and operations, and it basically challenges the fabric of how, when, where, what the concept of work means, and globally now. Intelligent automation, sitting next to that definition, has been instrumental driving force in shaping this narrative and enabling business leaders to achieve these four things that we're seeing on screen here. So first and foremost, the concept of intelligent automation in the context of future of work. If you think about the concept of digital was built on complex legacy stacks that, if we think about 10 years ago, were perfect for the time and place they were operating. Fast forward to today, they're really slow, they hamper speed, they impact operational efficiency. Things such as intelligent automation, whether robotic process automation, conversational technology, machine learning, they're coming in and they're able to address those challenges, and they're able to challenge those legacy stacks, giving business leaders the opportunity to reimagine fundamentally what work means thinking harder about the basic swivel chair jobs, but also thinking more about the cognitive workflows that happen across their organization. Think KYC, think customer service. The technology stack also is starting to get challenged itself. So we're not thinking now just about business models, but we're thinking architecturally. We're thinking, well, as a service is now starting to become a really interesting conversation in many organizations. Digital transformation is a real driving force again towards both architectures, business models, and again, it's really wedged in this response of being able to adapt, respond, and deploy very quickly across the organization. As that stat there on the left-hand side suggests, a recent piece of research by McKinsey found that the companies that were able to respond through digital were actually capturing a significantly higher level of revenues generated in their industry. So again, just to highlight, they're able to adapt, deploy, and respond much quicker. A great example that's been used, I think, for the last couple of years now is an insurance company called Lemonade. They were really transformative in their sector in that they've brought machine learning capabilities into portable technology, your mobile phone, where they're deploying things like computer vision, really complex algorithms to basically, if you're in an accident, you can take a photo on your phone. It will go to a largely robotic center of processing and evaluation. And I think they still hold the record for the fastest claims processed, which is 3 seconds from someone being in an accident, taking an image, and then processed. I mean, that's fundamentally huge for an industry that has built, being built on complex, as I say, legacy stacks, huge pyramids of people. This is really transformative and really game-changing. If we think then, the second point there is these tools also don't just generate benefits for business leaders and organizations, they have a fundamental impact on the people in our organizations. So our employees. So critically, what we're seeing here is once we think about what the tools can do, we can start to think about, well, how do we start to break down silos across our organization? How do we start to allow folk within our businesses to bring more autonomy to what they're doing by giving them the right tools such as robotic process automation, machine learning, as I mentioned before, where we can drive up to 40% efficiencies, productivity through the reduction of manual and mundane processes. Additionally, we've also found that in addition to the stat on the screen here, which just goes to show, get this right and your employees will be very happy. We've also found that it can boost employee satisfaction up to 15% when you start to bring in things like cobots, assistive technology, intelligent automation in the front office. We can start to really improve the livelihood of our people who are looking for more interesting tasks, more challenging tasks. Next, similarly, we've got, on the third statistic there, we've got the customer obviously benefits from all of these transformations and these changes. So similar to the employee experience, tools such as chatbots, tools such as advanced self-service technologies are able to enable customers to access information, data, support transactions 24/7. Fundamentally, though, they're now able to start to self-serve issues, resolve problems wherever they are, whatever device they're using, and they can start to really engage with an organization beyond the realms of when a human is available. Again, this has been really important for what we've seen with the COVID discussion and the move to home, is just being able to enable people, as you said before, Catherine, that people are getting really frustrated, stress is high, mental health is an issue. So being able to try to make customers' lives easier is actually having a huge impact on customer experience. And finally, the key piece here, and one of the core pillars within the future of work narrative is the concept that Horses for Sources industry analyst has been using for a while now, which is they call it the one office, and really it's the integration of front and back office. And actually this is what really unlocks the ability to bring that autonomy, as I mentioned, is to break down those silos. We need to think, how can technology support people in the back, people in the front, as well as customers? And the one office concept really brings that to life. Basically, we'll talk about it in a minute here, but it's how do we bring that digital spine across the business? How do we digitize data? How do we digitalize processes? And how do we transform the way we work by bringing front and back office together? And this is really important as we talk about intelligent automation, because we can unlock a lot more value if we think holistically front to back as a larger piece of work, rather than looking at marginal gains through automating tactical processes here and there.
Yeah, I'm interested in this one office concept. Can you talk me through it in a little bit more detail, Chris?
Yeah, sure. So hopefully you can see my screen. The one office concept, as I said, created by Horses for Sources. It's a great way of looking at the world, and it typically has three core aspects to it. So we'll start with the left here, which is the autonomous back office. So within the autonomous back office, this is about looking at processes and the way work is processed, thinking about, as I mentioned, how do you digitize the data that flows through that? How do you simplify, re-engineer, or optimize processes, not for the sake of processing more faster, but actually it has a flow-on effect then to that front office, that outcome-driven front office. Second, we've got the second layer there, which is the intelligent support function. So again, this is about autonomy. How do you bring in the guardrails? How do you bring in the compliance, the regulation? How do you ensure that the folk who are working in the back office can act autonomously, either with rules embedded decision engines running in the background, or even working alongside robotic process automation? So we start to see a shift here from RPA as a tactical tool to run a process, to actually RPA starts to move into a more assistive role. And we start to see RPA acting almost as a virtual worker alongside the humans, but it has to be thought in a holistic sense. And actually, it comes onto that third bubble there, which is typically when we look at programs of work, when we're talking about intelligent automation, it requires a fundamental rethink about what a process looks like, what it feels like, and what it means. This is not process engineering anymore. This is going down the design thinking school of thought. How do we start with what the customer is looking for and then build the process back from there? As I mentioned before, the Lemonade example is a great example of that. And we're seeing it in a lot of banking and financial services clients, starting with the client and rebuilding the processes back with a digital first view, often comes up with a dramatically different process and workflow. And you start to see that middle bucket there, and that, which is the unification of outcomes. So where the agents are talking to customers on the front end, we're seeing actually they can start to handle a lot of this back office processing themselves because it has been designed that way. The final pillar there on that left-hand side is decisioning and insight. As I mentioned, bringing in tools like machine learning, decision engines, we can start to make sense of bigger pools of data, and data that isn't necessarily new or cold data coming in from a customer. If we've done the first two pillars right, we're starting to get digital exhaust falling out of what the robots are doing, what the humans are doing via workflow and orchestration tools. And we can start to get some really interesting and rich data here, which can start to drive different behaviors in the back office. It can influence and facilitate thinking around the design thinking aspect. But actually, we can start to build in proactive decision-making. Telco has been doing this for a while now, which is not just around customer churn, but equally around energy usage, energy efficiency. We can start to get really predictive now around when we think heavy users are, how do we move energy around the grid effectively? I'll just quickly cover off that middle bucket then. So if we get the autonomous back office set up and running as it suggests autonomously, we can start to think really differently now about what that front office looks like. And front office typically is a contact center, but actually it could cover a website. It's basically a customer contact point. And what we're seeing here is this is where we start to see assistive technology, desktop automation, tools such as NICE really coming to the forefront here, acting as an assistant aside the agent to not only help listen and respond to what the conversation is happening in real time, but actually start to tailor and personalize some of these experiences for both the agent and the customer. Dramatically, I mean, and fundamentally here is that final bit there is what we're aiming to achieve by bringing those front and back offices together is this dramatically improved human experience. And it's human because it's the agent one day, it's the employee the next day, it's the customer the next day. It really has the concept of a human operator or a human consuming this information in mind. So, I mean, it's a great concept, and it's one we use a lot. And it's something really important here, I think, with unlocking the value of intelligent automation is thinking in this respect.
Well, Chris, that's really, really interesting, and I'd love to add to this very powerful one office concept that you've just described. Really, in terms of the underlying automation technology, it's really interesting to understand how both attended and unattended bots work together. So, if we take an attended bot such as Neva, Neva's more advanced and intelligent. She has richer capabilities, and she's really designed with the employee in mind, which is why she resides on the employee's desktop. And she has these real-time capabilities to respond to the real-time needs of the employee at any time to help them create a better human experience for the customer. Now, attended bots are typically less sophisticated and reside in the back end, and they're designed to handle, the more simplistic and repetitive tasks. So attended bots like Neva can actually trigger the unattended bots to perform certain tasks in the back end. And this dynamic of both attended and unattended bots working collaboratively from the back office through to the front office can really reduce the workload of the employee. And the idea is to free up our customer-facing staff to be more human and empathetic to the customers to really improve the human experience, as you've said.
Okay, I'm intrigued actually. Kind of what is changing in the back office in response to this one office concept? Is it being integrated, Chris?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I'll probably defer to Steve here to talk us a bit more through the customer journey side. But I mean, fundamentally, the driving force here is the need, as I mentioned before, to be agile, to be responsive. Now we've got the need to be resilient as well. Bring resilience into supply chains, into back office, and really try to maximize how that back office aligns with the front office. So I'll probably defer to Steve to fill us in a bit more about kind of bringing to life that one office concept. Steve, welcome your thoughts on this.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at it, we talk about things like one office, we talk about back office, we talk about this sort of front end, and we talk about web self-service. I think it's worthwhile that all of those are really supporting one simple concept, which is how we really providing service to that customer, whether or not we're helping them to purchase a product, to service a product, to support a product, to fulfill that product. From a customer's perspective, it doesn't really care if that's front office, back office. It's just the way that we naturally break up organizations to have some kind of organization and structure to make that happen. So the closer we can bring these things together and we can put that at the controls of whoever's customer facing, means that we can be way more efficient in being able to manage that customer and help fulfill that customer's needs. So if we look at that in the context of this sort of customer journey, and we touched on this earlier on when we were talking about work at home, but that customer journey really starts when somebody's, sat there on the sofa, or they've got this thought that comes into their mind that either I need to buy something, whatever that may be, or they're using something or doing something and they can't anymore because something's broken. And so there's two always drivers. I want to buy something, I need a new service or product, or I've got a problem with the service or a product and I need help on it. And almost always that starts online. Even if they just want to phone the contact center, they're probably going to go online to try and find that contact center's telephone number. Nobody, I think, keeps those manuals. In fact, most products don't even ship with manuals anymore. So everything starts on that journey in the front web. That's where the customer journey starts. Then from there, it's a case of are we owning that query? Are we sending that customer to the right place so they find the right information they need? And 9 times out of 10, we don't. We're bottom of the list. Companies spend a fortune on digital marketing to own those buzzwords when we're trying to buy a product, but when we're trying to fix a product, it's often a secondary thought. If we look at some common issues as well around FAQs are often the last question that someone's decided to give to the website team to add there, not the most prevalent question that people are asking about. So often it's difficult to get it fulfilled on that website. Then once you've gone through all of that trauma of trying to get that problem fixed, you're at that point of no other option but to contact somebody, then it's not uncommon for them to ask, all of that effort that you've gone through is wasted, and you start again. You have to go and answer all of those questions. You've got to go through their sort of company script. Then we've got to, whatever that needs, something needs to be fulfilled in the background, and we have to then go through these complex processes. And if an agent's fairly new, or if it's complex to process, that doesn't happen very often, they're trying to sort of scramble that, or they call them for help on it. So you've got to look at that complete end to end. If it's seamless, then 9 times out of 10, as soon as you search for that problem, you're going to get the right content that's going to help you solve your problem. If it can't, because there is a process that needs to follow, then there's a seamless link through into that contact center, passing through so that the agent knows exactly what you've been doing on the web, what you've been looking at, understands what your intent to that call is and what your problem is. And then he has all these tools that is to help augment that agent that makes these processes seamless. So this frustrating journey using digital technology can be translated into a much more successful journey, but it's still very human-led. There's still a customer at the end of it, and there's still this agent that's trying to help the problems. And what we're doing is we're really providing tools to help that support that agent to really service that customer for whatever he needs. I hope that puts a bit of context into that journey piece, Peter.
Yeah, I was going to say these are interesting concepts we've been talking about so far, but what do they mean in practice, especially in the context of the customer experience, Steve?
Well, if we really focus on the sort of, the attended automation piece, then what we've got to realize is a big difference between processes that are happening in the contact center and processes that are happening in the back office. So often in the back office, it's very sequential. This happens in this way at this time, and all these inputs are there, and that's the process there. It doesn't happen like that in a contact center. Contact centers are incredibly multidimensional, and it's really a unique set of small processes that make up individual transactions. You have to go and validate the user. You have to go and do some troubleshooting. You have to then go and follow an order process or process a return or whatever that needs to do. And it's the mix and order of those processes change on virtually every call. That's why attended automation is much more prevalent to handling those multidimensional factors of the contact center, because orchestrating that is your agent. And he's got Neva that's sat next to him, that's been able to fulfill all of those individual bits. Neva, go and get me this information I need to help this customer. Neva, go and complete that process that I need to be able to do that. So it's really providing these tools to the agents so they're not putting somebody on hold, scrambling around multiple different systems, following multiple different processes, some of which they don't do on a regular basis. All of that is automated, but it's not automated in the contact center of 10 years ago when everybody followed a script, because that's just frustrating for customers, because customers want to go through that problem in the order they want to go through it and complete those processes in the order that they want to process it. So that's where really attended automation fits in with this customer journey, because it's flexible, because it's being attended to, and it's being orchestrated by the agent to sort of complete those processes in any order or any mix of processes that helps complete that customer transaction.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Some really, really interesting and important insights there. And I would love to deep dive into attended automation, since we've touched a lot on intelligent automation. And over here we have Neva. Neva's an attended bot, and she's specifically designed to support the employee in many different ways, a lot of them which Steve has already described. And it really doesn't matter whether the employee is at home or in the office. She can provide them with real-time guidance exactly when they need it to be efficient. So it's really important, I think, to understand that people still need to take ownership over a process and provide their unique human characteristics and touch. But what we are saying is that when we combine these unique human qualities with the intelligence that Neva brings to the employee, we can really create an amazing human experience for the end customer. And before I deep dive even more, I just wanted to touch on the back office, because there's a common conception that attended bots are mainly for the front office. And I just wanted to mention that attended bots like Neva can also function in the back office. And if an unattended bot comes across a process error, that is when a more intelligent bot like Neva will automatically reroute that error to the employee in real time, so that the employee can validate it or input whatever additional data may be needed to then authorize the unattended bots to complete processing those particular tasks. So as you can see, attended automation has a multifaceted nature, and it really supports so many of these issues that we've discussed, that employees and enterprises are tackling at the moment. So we've looked at how policies and guidelines change so frequently, and employees are under pressure to rapidly adapt to these. And in some instances, they're expected to take on multiple roles while they're working from home. So when you have a dynamic attended robot like Neva to give the employee step-by-step guidance, of course in real time, when these new policies become integrated into their work days, this is very handy and very valuable. Now, one of the beauties with Neva is that she's able to handle unstructured data. So basically, by integrating with OCR and machine learning, she can assist with breaking down unstructured data into a structured format to then feed that to our unattended robots. And it comes in really handy when she can channel any exceptions or errors, like I just mentioned, to the employee to correct in real time. What's really interesting from a business insights and an analytics perspective is that Neva has the capability to collect data from the employee's desktops, and she can produce reports that really assesses the productivity of these employees. I mean, this analysis can even identify productivity gaps. And by feeding these reports to management, it's very valuable in guiding managers on how to close these productivity gaps. And these desktop insights can also actually be extended to pinpointing specific process sequences that have enormous potential to automate, that would really deliver a good ROI back to the business if they were automated. So this is what we refer to as AI-based process automation discovery. Another aspect that really personalizes and enhances the employee's experience is Neva's chatbot interface. So the employee can ask Neva to do things via a chat window. She's not a chatbot, but she can be integrated with a chatbot and perform various actions in the back end. So some employees may have a preferred way to work, and Neva can be triggered manually, by voice, or automatically. So I'd like to actually share a real life example with you, taken from one of our customers, a large utilities company, and they automated an extremely complicated process that required a large amount of consultation with the end customer over the phone. And this all has to do with scheduling a smart meter installation. So before this customer automated the process with Neva, it was taking their employees over 40 minutes to complete the process with the customer on the phone. So this particular demonstration that I'm going to show you is particularly relevant to what we're experiencing today in a COVID-19 economy. In fact, I want to share a story with you. One of my colleagues who lives in the States is now temporarily residing in Israel. And he actually pointed out to me that his local utility company at the moment are estimating electricity bills because they cannot physically send their staff to manually check the meter readings. So it turns out that even though my colleague has been out of the country for a few months now, he's still being billed the same amount as if he were in the States. So this kind of inaccuracy can really create a terrible customer experience. And this is actually a time when smart meter readings can be very helpful to avoid these types of inaccurate billings. Because of a smart meter, the consumption will just be automatically reported to the utility company. So let's take a look at a demonstration of how Neva works in a real life situation. Chris, if you could start the demo, thank you. So here we see a call entering the call center. Neva's
sorry, Catherine. There's a lag on your there's a lag on your side. So
demo.
Yes. Hello, Catherine.
Yeah. Hi. I'm wondering if we should connect to my desktop just for the demo. Maybe that would make more sense if there's a lag between the screen and the audio.
Well, what I might do is I might press play, and then I'll say play, and then you tell me you just say yes as soon as you start seeing it moving, and that way I'll be able to count it off and know. So just say yes when you see it moving, and I'm going to say play when I press play.
Okay.
You ready?
Ready.
Okay. Play.
Yes. So here we see a call coming into the call center.
Sorry, Catherine.
I was just automatically identify the call.
Hello, Catherine. Sorry, I was just testing the lag because there's quite a big lag.
Yes.
There's like a 6-7 second lag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press. I mean, we can switch it back to your screen if you want to. Yeah, it's even bigger now actually because do you want to run it on your screen, and we might record the video directly on yours. You can talk it through, and then when you're done, you can hand it back to me, and I can finish off the deck. Would that work better?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So I've stopped sharing my screen now.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to show my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
I can see a VLC icon. So yes, I guess that's your screen. I guess that's your screen.
All right. Okay, can I go ahead and present the demo? Yeah, it is. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. So here we can see a call coming into the call center, and Neva pops up immediately, understanding exactly what the customer query is all about. And as I enter the customer details, Neva pulls up exactly the right page of the CRM application. And now she's showing me that the email address of the customer is missing. So as I type this in, you can see the real-time connection between the Neva interface and the CRM application. This information is being updated simultaneously in real time. Neva continues to take me through a process. She's guiding me step by step through this very complicated process. There are many questions that I need to ask the customer, and we're going through it step by step. I know exactly what I need to ask the customer before going to the next step. And now Neva's picked up that I've made a mistake, which is really handy because it keeps me compliant. I can correct this mistake. And now Neva is triggering all of the back-end robots to do an eligibility check for the customer to see if they're eligible for a smart meter installation, which they are. And she's notifying me about an upsell opportunity, which she'll come back to later because there are more things to do first. And again, she's telling me exactly what I need to do. And I'm now scheduling a date for the customer's meter installation. As I process this request, again, Neva triggers an automation in the back end. We see various different applications opening up. This is the scheduling application, and it's actually saving all of the data for this customer's appointment in the back end. So now Neva's telling me exactly what to say to the customer, and she's also showing me that the customer is eligible for a special promotion. So I've accepted this, and what Neva is going to do now is pull up more applications to do a calculation. Right now, she's busy calculating the ROI that this special promotion would give the customer if the customer decides to go with it. And again, she's showing me all the information. We're all done. And Neva has prepared an email for me to check and send to the customer that summarizes everything that we've discussed on the call. And it doesn't end with the email. Neva takes all the information of that was in the email and updates the CRM application with all of the call summary notes as well. So I'm going to stop there, Chris, and perhaps we can share your screen again. Great. So you could actually go to the next slide, and I can pick up from there before handing it back to you. Great. So in this demo, we really see how Neva collaborated with the back-end robots to handle scheduling. Scheduling the customer's appointment was very much part of the automated back office. So what we can see from this demonstration is that with attended bots and server-side bots working together collaboratively, we can largely increase the employee's work capacity. And in fact, when this process that I just demonstrated was executed manually, it took the employee 40 minutes. With Neva assisting the employee, it went down to 2.5 minutes. So really a dramatic result. So Chris or Peter, back to you.
In terms of continuous transformation, how should we think about approaching an intelligent automation program, Chris?
Thanks, Peter. And again, thanks, Catherine. I think what we saw there was a brilliant example of how an automation project comes to life through Neva and the real benefits that automation can drive. I think it's really key to note there that in order to really realize the potential that intelligent automation technologies can bring to the table, it is not a one and done project. So whether it's Neva, whether it's other technologies, the key to remember here is it's a journey of continuous transformation. Typically, and what you're seeing on screen now is how we at Symphony look at that journey. As I mentioned, it's ever evolving and ever growing. So if we think about, first of all, start with that left-hand side of simplification, coming back to the one office concept, the idea is here, we want to start with the customer or the employee or the agent, and we want to deliver the best experience for our stakeholders. But equally, we've got one eye on operational efficiency, cost, etc. But if we start with the goal of improving that experience, we start to think about solving that problem very differently. So we start to think about how do we digitize for improved personalization? How do we reimagine that customer experience completely? How do we introduce tools such as Neva, such as intelligent OCR, such as chatbots? But fundamentally, underneath all of that, we also need to consider, well, what is the underlying process here that supports all of this? Is it ready to go as is? Is it proven, mature, or does it need some re-engineering to make sure that the process from front to back office actually makes sense? So we really start all our projects with this lens of simplification, and it doesn't mean cutting things away for the sake of it. It means improving the experience by making things easier to consume, to use. Once we've got that piece of simplification done, and ideally we've got some digitization happening in the front, we can then start to think about automation. And critically, this is where a lot of programs do go wrong. They dive straight into the automation piece without thinking about that first step. What happens is you get I think the common nomenclature now is a series of random acts of automation across the business, all of which are doing something interesting, but actually it needs to come up to a master program or a bigger picture to actually deliver true value. So we think about actually get that front bit first, then automate. Automation is, again, it could be the use of Neva for agents, it could be the use of RPA in the back end. It's about using a digital workforce to drive those efficiencies and to integrate front and back office. But equally, it can be used more tactically as a segue between another large, expensive, complex IT project. Fundamentally, however, we start to see automation as a way to reduce costs, bottlenecks, improving speed. You can start to deploy interesting tools like process mining between this phase and the next phase to actually identify new opportunities to automate. So process mining, process discovery tools are great, and it's a topic for another day, but these tools we can deploy, we can identify large scale across a globally dispersed organization opportunities for automation or process improvement. And again, so we've gone through that second phase. We're into the third phase there, which is really augment or virtualize. And the goal here is RPA and basic automation can only get you so far before you need to start to think about how do you augment, like you would a human, as you go into more complex, more cognitive areas. How do you augment that virtual worker, or sorry, digital worker or human worker through tools like machine learning? How do you deploy chatbots, cobots to support the agents on the phone or the employees in the back office? And actually, how do you start to bring some of that really rich contextual analytics and decision making off the back of the automation program? Finally, we once we've gone through that lens there, and we're starting to get really advanced now, we can start to really fundamentally think about the shape and the nature of work. Coming back to the future of work narrative, if we have gone through those first 3 cycles, we're into the territory now. We're thinking about digital COEs, Center of Excellence. We're thinking about new operating models. We are starting to see some opportunities for further efficiency, further simplification, but we're also thinking about where the teams are and what they're doing and when they're doing it. So we're starting to connect now into Steve's narrative around the work from home, or rather remote working workforce, to get at work that previously we had to do near shore or onshore. So we're starting to have right shoring and right sourcing conversations now. We get to the back of that and we're not done. We go back around the circle again, back around the circle again. As I said, it's an ever evolving continuous loop of transformation. And it's an approach we've seen work well as companies go from a standing start into scaling up, whether it's intelligent automation or wider into digital transformation. Big pause there. Peter, at this point, do you want to go to Catherine for any, or Steve for any further addition to this section, or do we want to move on to the final section?
I think this was over to Catherine for a bit. I come in at the slide 18.
Catherine, is there anything you wanted to add on to this slide?
Okay, so I can pick up briefly. Very briefly, just the augment and virtualize element. So, okay. Chris, I'd love to add to the augment and virtualize components of what you were just talking about, and it's very exciting. You know, we're starting to see that attended bots are now integrating with real-time speech analytics technology. So what this means is that the verbal cues during a live customer interaction can be analyzed and understood. And in turn, the attended bot can actually guide the employee towards the next best action to drive a valuable outcome for the organization. So to give you an example, let's say that the real-time speech analytics picks up that a customer is really irate. The attended bot will know exactly how to guide the employee into a customer retention-based action. So this could take on, for example, making them an offer. So again, some other great technology that we're seeing come through to really augment our human employees. So I think we can move on to slide 12.
Does it make, so I know the next question is how does Symphony NICE working towards solving this? Does it make, and the question gets asked to me, but actually it probably makes more sense to go to Catherine for this slide, and then I can talk about the next slide in my response. Does that work, yes. Catherine, Peter?
Okay.
Yes.
So how are Symphony and NICE working together to solve these future of work challenges? Catherine.
So, Peter, we've looked at how Neva can support remote employees in many different contexts and roles. So we've basically put together long-term and short-term solutions for Neva. So if we look at it from a long-term perspective, we have Neva at home, and this includes a lot of different components, such as an automation portal to manage the virtual workforce from one central location. We have complete infrastructure with servers and an automation design tool to build and develop the automations. There's also reporting. Neither can get the insights and create reports based on what employees are busy working on. And we can also use these insights to pinpoint additional automation opportunities using artificial intelligence. And this is our automation finder feature, which is part of the package. What we're also offering at the moment is Neeva Unlimited. Now, this is an offer where we provide an unlimited number of attended bots, really to assist with the back office. Because at this time, having a combination of both attended and back office bots is very helpful and valuable. Now, having said that, if we look at it from a short-term perspective, some organizations are not quite ready to make a longer-term commitment. So for this reason, we've offered a shorter-term approach, which we refer to as the Neeva Starter Kit. And this is designed to show immediate value within days. So this includes free Neeva licenses, as many as what would be needed for the contact center. And the idea is to really experience the value firsthand. And this comes with predefined or out-of-the-box capabilities. So Neeva can be used straight away. And if organizations are experiencing and understanding the value that Neeva brings after the first 3 months, we can then move over to a more comprehensive deployment approach. Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Catherine. And just really quickly now, I'm conscious of time. So we are working very closely with our friends at NICE, both within the context of Neeva. So we can support implementation, we can support design, we can support strategy around both Neeva as well as the core NICE contact center and automation offerings. Quick little plug here on screen. So we've got 3 core practices in our organization. Firstly, starting with consulting. So we talked a lot today about designing, reimagining, re-engineering, optimization. This is what we typically do within our consulting practice. Implementation is, as I mentioned, we can work through technical designs, business designs, operational designs, and then we can deploy and implement or integrate the technologies as needed. And finally, once we're up and running, we'll then we can do the heavy lifting in the back end. We've got operations in Krakow, in India, in APAC, and then through the Sykes acquisition and alongside Sykes Digital Services and the core Sykes business, we've got operational hubs now globally to support clients with contact center, with automation, and with digital transformation programs covering all 3 buckets here.
Okay, thank you everybody for that fascinating run through of some of the options available. I suppose a final question from me, kind of looking to the future, what do you think the new normal will be in terms of the way we work? Presumably you guys reckon it will be continuing to work from home but enabled by technology. I suppose, Chris, do you want to take it first?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, 2 seconds. My thought is we've used the word reimagine a lot. I think where we are now is, at least from a UK perspective, we are seeing the grass shoots of a bounce in response to COVID. I think now actually is a really critical time for business leaders, for organizations to get together and start to think about and reimagine what does the new normal start to look like. How do we reimagine not only core operations, but where does technology play? How will we enable our employees? How will we enable our agents? And how do we service customers in this new world where we've got remote workforce, we've got the challenges associated, as Steve mentioned before, around security, around privacy. I think it's the right time now where we need to inward reflect a little bit and start to reimagine what the future could look like. And I think now is the perfect time to do that.
And Steve, does the new normal look like in terms of the workforce?
Absolutely. I think any new normal involves a catalyst for change. And I think we've just gone through the biggest catalyst of change that we're ever going to see in our generation, in our lifetimes. So a lot of these services that we've been talking about were there 6 months ago, but now there's a lot more focus on it, and people have been forced to try it, that they can see the long-term benefits that it's going to bring, and it's going to be that act as that catalyst for change. And that change, as Chris said, is about reimagining and having digital first thought process around your human interactions, but keeping them human. The key here is definitely having human and machine working side by side. Or one of the concepts we like to talk about is really want to take the robot out of the human and robotize that so the human can concentrate on what they do best. Empathy, building relationships, and helping drive businesses forward.
Okay, and finally, Catherine, any thoughts on the new normal for work?
Absolutely, and I think what Chris and Steve have just described is absolutely true, and such important points. I think that there's still a lot of uncertainty, and it's really critical for businesses to ensure that they have the operational agility at this time to rapidly adapt to any external changes that arise, because we are living in really unpredictable times. So we've seen a few examples of how intelligent automation can be a real enabler to organizations and employees while they're adjusting to the new normal. And as Steve has pointed out, it's been a great catalyst to really accelerate digital transformation at this time. So I think depending on each organization's unique culture and circumstances, it's very possible that flexible working and working from home will continue. And we also anticipate that human-bot partnerships will undoubtedly form a huge part of this new way of working.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
That's it.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, guys. That was fun.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Perfect. So I thought that was great. I think there's a couple of gaps that might need to be stitched together, but I thought largely that was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, Lena, did you have any words?
Hi, sorry. Hi, I think there's quite a bit sort of for the editing point of view. We need to get the, the gaps and sort of a few bits and pieces cleaned up. But I think once it's all put together, it should be okay.
What's your preference, Matt-Lena, in terms of doing that? I appreciate it's a little bit late maybe to output the file today, but would you rather output the whole file as it is and for the guys to feed back on the minutes that they'd like cut, or do you want to give it a little tidy up for the obvious pieces and then send it to them? What's your preference? Because I'm aware that I've promised Fiona that we'll start marketing this at some point this month. So I would like to stick to that timeline. So what's going to work best for you, Matt-Lena? Because I appreciate you've got to do the bulk of the editing, and there are quite a lot of edits.
It would probably be actually easiest if I send it as it is to everyone, and everyone can have a sort of, listen through it. And, there is the obvious places where there is gaps of, people asking a question to the next person, things like that. There is no need to mention, like, sort of basic gaps. But if there is anything, if you would put your edit, your notes, if there is any specific places that you would like to be cut, that would actually make it quicker. Because if I edited it and then spend a long time editing, and then you come back and you have a lot of new edits, it's almost like doubling the work.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Is that all right with everyone else? So if we send you the raw file tomorrow, once it's output from the system, unfortunately it doesn't happen very quickly, so I think that is a tomorrow thing now. Are you all happy to listen to it this week if possible, and kind of send over the minutes and a description of the edit you would like? Would that be okay?
Yeah, it works for me. Catherine, does it make sense that your side have a first crack at it, and then Steve and I can have a final look at it before it goes back over, just to give our few bits? Again, I think there's not a huge amount from our side. It was just the gaps where we kind of had the instructions or the discussion in the middle. So I'm thinking it's not a huge amount from our side, but do you want your side to have a first crack, and we can just take the final look?
Sure, I think that makes sense, and it'll be more efficient to get it back to NTN with our consolidated inputs. So for sure, I think that makes a lot of sense.
And Catherine, you tell us if you think you don't need Steve or I to input because you've got all the edits. Don't feel like you have to run it past us. Just, you know, if we can get the side of the, you know, if the original comes over, we've got that. Unless Kim, there's just you want necessarily to see it before it goes back.
Okay, not a problem. You know, we could review it and take it from there.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we're happy to help. So if you take that first run, we can then, again, we don't want to be the bottleneck here, and appreciate we want to move quick. So yeah, we welcome your thoughts on what you want us to look at after you've had a look at it.
Okay, so shall I send it to all of you still, the file tomorrow? It's going to be, sorry, so I will send you the file tomorrow via V-transfer, because it's quite big, so it won't be big enough to email.
Okay.
Is that okay?
No problem.
Perfect.
Brilliant.
And yeah, as Madeleine said,
Sure.
you know, just to reduce the work on your side, you know, any obvious pauses we can cut out ourselves, obviously to tidy up and make it sound good. I suppose one query would be those instances where, for whatever reason, you know, we went off script a little bit and somebody had to be reminded to kind of chip in. You have two choices. One, you know, for example, Chris, can you change the slides as an example? Do you want that kind of thing cut out, or do you want to leave it in for it to sound natural?
I think we need to take a look at it and see what makes the most sense.
Okay, we'll leave it with you. I was trying to.
There were some parts that were pretty natural, and there were other parts that were, yeah.
Sure. All right. Well, we'll leave it with you. We'll send that through to you via WeTransfer.
We'll take a look at it and come back to you.
Perfect. I think there's still a bit of a lag, but thank you everyone for your efforts today. Really good job. And yeah, Peter, did you have any final words? Did anyone else have anything to say before we head off?
Just a big thank you from us. Steve's had to drop, but thank you for having us, and you know, really enjoyed the conversation. Thought it was a great discussion. Yeah, really looking forward to seeing the output, and yeah, thanks again. It was great.
Okay, cheers, guys.
Brilliant.
Thanks everyone. Take care.
Thanks everyone.
All.
Bye.